It was very romantic. Wilfred Owen wrote amazing poetry about the terribleness of war. But he was there in the trenches.
There was one of the most, just a short line, and you'll know this work, but I remember listening to it on the radio around at the time of November the 11th one year, and called Under the Shadow of the Guns.
Right.
Yes. It's quite extraordinary. I was in France about 5-6 years ago, and we were in northern France in a little tiny town. It was very pretty, it was very, very hot, and we were driving a vehicle that went on to become a multi-purpose vehicle, but at the time we thought of it as a van. And we reached this T-junction, and there was a sign that was hanging on the skew. So in other words, instead of pointing directly in the right direction, it was pointing down towards a foxhole.
Right.
And it said, Ypres. And you know, I couldn't stop the tears streaming down my face.
Well, can I tell you briefly what I wasn't going to talk about this, Mike, but talking about our brave soldiers. For a start, can I say that I don't want them to be in Iraq and Afghanistan, but I totally support the guys out there 100%, and the Ministry of Defence hasn't given them the right equipment.
Do you know, that in itself should be an indictable offence. You know, to take soldiers, fully trained, and the British Army is fully trained, as you know, and to send them without the right equipment. I could justify taking certain members of the civil service and placing them on a very severe charge.
Well, you're right, because I mean we've seen that people at the top. We're not talking about civil servants in your local social security office who are very low paid. We're talking about people on 100 grand a year who are senior civil servants, Mike.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There was a great line once: if you're going to make a cock-up, make a really big one. You'll probably benefit from it.
And I'd just like to say about my dad, he was an unsung hero. He was in the Royal Navy during the Second World War on a British destroyer Royal Navy destroyer that was helping a convoy come into the port of Liverpool, which was being bombed night after night after night in 1941, like Coventry was, like the East End of London was, by the Germans. And my dad was suddenly told, abandon ship. His Royal Navy ship had been hit by a German submarine torpedo, and all the guys had to jump into the freezing cold North Atlantic. And I would not be here today, because I was born after the war, Mike, if another British ship hadn't picked up my dad.
Well, they reckon that survival was just a few minutes in waters of that temperature, didn't they?
God, yes. He had to swim underwater to go underneath burning fuel on the surface.
What? These men and women of that time were heroes, weren't they?
They were, yeah, and lots of women too, you're right. And I'd just like to say that where we can use our highly trained, the best army in the world, which is why the Americans want the British in Afghanistan and in Iraq to join them in being world policemen, I would say bring them all back. Obviously, you'd have to get rid of Tony Blair first. And
I don't think that's far away.
Right, good, that's good. And they should all be at our airports and at Dover and our seaports and at the Channel Tunnel and certainly at Heathrow and Stansted and Birmingham, because the British Airports Authority, Mike, are more interested in their profits and their shareholders than the thousands of people who, as we're speaking, Mike, are stuck at Heathrow and Stansted, and the British Army should be there instead of in Iraq and Afghanistan.
One thing you could be quietly sure of, David, that should that order arrive, they will be instructed to collect full desert military kit.
Right.
To do it. Of course they will. I just wanted to ask you a question.
Yes.
I was listening to talkSPORT the other day, and they were playing out the news, and I was listening very carefully, and they mentioned that the British Army had closed down an interest in a base in the south of Iraq and returned the personnel back to Basra.
Yeah.
And then there was a little news story the following day about America and a narrowing of focal interest of their involvement. And I thought, hang on, what is this telling us here? What are they saying? They're saying that they don't need to be as involved. And then the Americans came out with it and said, we're prepared, should on our removal from Iraq, to go down to Kuwait.
Yeah.
So I thought, they're saying this. They're making it known. And then the British Army in Afghanistan, they're closing off advanced areas of interest because their lines are spread too thinly to serve them best. I think they're sending signals here that they're just ready to come out.
Well, can I say one thing before the news, Mike?
I hope so. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, it's 1 minute and 55 seconds. 1 minute, 55 seconds. So you've got about 2.5 minutes?
Can I say one serious thing before the news? To all the, I'm an atheist and a humanist, so I equally despise Muslims and Roman Catholics. I think they're all misguided, but I support their right to have a church or a mosque. But can I just say to all the Muslims who are listening to talkSPORT right now, Mike Allen, there was no oil in Yugoslavia. There was no oil in Kosovo. There was only one group of people that protected the Muslims who were being machine-gunned to death by the Roman Catholic Serbs, and that was the British Army. And there was no oil in Kosovo, there was no oil in Yugoslavia, and the British Army saved the lives of thousands of Muslims.
Absolutely. No surprise there. Thank you very much, David. You're listening to talkSPORT. It's Mike Allen for Mike Mendoza. Now, we've established that Mike is definitely fine. There was this terrible rumour that he might have counted this week's expense money and had a fall because he fell off the top of it, but no, it's not true. So all that's fine. We'll be extending the conversation right after the news, but the desertion rate for the British Army has doubled since the start of the war in Iraq. Have you or a member of your family ever deserted? And do they ever forgive you? Is it something that you've learned to live with, or is it something that will never alter your terror? I'm Mike Allen. This is talkSPORT. You can give me a call and express your thoughts on 1089 and 1053 AM. By the way, Stuart is next. That's right after the news. If you're reaching for the telephone in a moment to be Arrested Development and have a word with me, my number is 08704 20 20 20. 08704 20 20 20. You can email me or you can text me on 81089. Somebody mentioned earlier on, a listener said, why don't we just forget the war and play football? Well, we could do, but, football on the radio, it doesn't really work unless you've got special football trousers on, does it? That, by the way, and we'll also be talking about dating. You've got the number. Okay. 08704 20 20 20. There is this plan that motorists, when driving in certain areas, will have the control of their vehicles removed from them and given to a third party. 20-mile-an-hour speed zones. Are we losing the plot here? Paul Smith, founder of Safe Speed Road Safety Campaign, will be joining us soon after the news. I'm Mike Allen. This is talkSPORT.
On 1089 and 1053 AM.
The most deeply held principles
around the world.
Not kneeling on our knees.
Around the clock.
It was never meant to be negotiated.
From the Sky News Centre. talkSPORT on the Hour News.
The top stories from the Sky News Centre at 2.
On 1089 and 1053 AM. talkSPORT.
I had to make sure when they asked me to pop in and cover this gig tonight I had the right shoes on, because you don't want to go to talkSPORT with the wrong shoes, do you? People look at you and laugh. And they said, the suede desert boots. I don't think so. No, not even for money. A speed limiter has been unveiled. A new government-backed system that will force vehicles to observe speed limits using an engine limiter is set to create some controversy. In other words, you're in the zone in more ways than one. And this equipment can take charge of the speed determining capability of your vehicle, So if you wish to make a manoeuvre with the added assistance of its acceleration, that option isn't available to you. We're going to be speaking with Paul Smith in just a few moments, who's founder of the Safe Speed Road Safety Campaign, to discuss this and other issues. For example, the 20-minute speed blitz on country roads to top up police coffers, say some. Maybe they're right. Let's have a word with Pauline in Sutton, because we were talking about dating. Hello, Pauline.
Oh, hello, Mike.
God.
Welcome back. It was ironic, because tonight I was actually talking to my son several hours prior, and your name came up.
Goodness.
And I couldn't believe it when I heard you were on. We were talking about different presenters and things, and I said, I haven't heard from Mike Allen. And then when I heard you were on, I thought, how strange.
It's quirk how things happen, isn't it?
It is. I haven't heard you for a few years.
Yes.
Anyway,
I'm alive and well. I'm alive and well, and thank you very much for remembering me.
Yes. Anyway, about this dating,
Yes.
I think people are more picky nowadays, as you mentioned, especially the younger women. I mean, when they first meet, they want to know what job or car a man drives. I suppose it's to do with a status thing, and that meaning the better the job, the more money, etc. And I personally go for intelligence. I personally go for intelligence and a sense of humour. I mean, I've tried these dating agencies, magazines, the internet, but to no avail. And because I've found the men dishonest, and they aren't who they say they are. And plus, I don't trust the men who only give mobile phone numbers. I think they're hiding something.
Well, I think you're probably right.
They're on these ego-boosting trips. I mean, years ago, people courted, didn't they? They used to court for a while, got engaged, married, and I think romance today seems devoid. And in a lot of relationships, and it's more lust than love.
Well, I was looking through this small ads the other day when it came to dating, and I noticed a lot of people have put down GSOH, and I thought, well, what could that mean? And I was talking to my friend, she who must be adored and worshipped, the other day, and we both arrived at the feeling that it stood for garage space own home. Do you not think that might be wrong?
I know, that's what that means great sense of humour, doesn't it? GSOH. I think that plays
good sense of nothing to do with garage space own home. No.
I think
yes, of course it would be.
Intelligence I go for. Looks are not that important to me, and I'm still looking for someone. I mean, I like swimming, parasailing, rowing, walking, gardening, the arts, writing, calligraphy, and I find it quite hard, because when I did meet someone on the internet, what was it, over a year ago, all they were talking about going to bed together on the first night.
Really?
And I soon hit that bloke. I couldn't have it. And when they give mobile numbers, I think they're hiding. They don't give their own home number. And I don't trust men like that. I think it is the men that are dishonest in these adverts.
Do you know, Pauline, I had a call from a namesake of yours, Paul, who's in Hertfordshire. Hello, Paul.
Hello, mate.
Listen.
Hello, Pauline.
Hello.
Long time no speak, darling.
Hello.
I said to George, is that Pauline? Does that make me sweaty? Take me from behind? Got a toy boy and all that?
I think that I might be hearing a bit more than I need to, yeah, so be careful.
Same person.
Same person. I think I've heard of you, haven't I?
Do you remember I chatted you up once on, what's the Irish fella's shows? John Cairns, do you remember?
Yes.
I put that voice on. Good evening, my dear.
Are you still available?
Oh, am I? I might be a bit too old for you, darling. I'm 38.
Oh, I'm too old for you, then.
Oh, babe.
Although I do look very young.
Do you?
Mike Mendoza's got photos of me.
Has he really?
Oh, yes.
Be very careful. Mrs. Mendoza might be listening, you know. He could be sharing too much information
I'll
here.
tell you what, Mike, I was in the studios on the 18th of May.
What, in here?
Oh, yes, I was.
Oh, why is it? Because there is a chair here with lots of tinsel on it. It must have been here on
I
the
was there with Phil, the producer.
Phil?
I'm sorry we've hijacked your show, Mike.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
well,
it's nice.
Paul, it gives it a dimension it didn't have until we changed the underwear.
But I tell tell you what, I'd like
it's
you
a great
to
show
set
tonight
up
to
one.
have someone different, have a whole different variety of callers ringing in. It's absolutely brilliant.
I tell you what, you stand there and we'll give you a fiver as you leave, all right? But it's on a piece of string, so we're going to pull it back out your pocket.
I'll tell you what, Mike, it's serious that I really would love to have a gentleman. Because, you know, sort of the life I had, brought up in an orphanage, etc., had a large family, divorced, but I like a gentleman for company. I mean, I've just come back from Ibiza. But,
have you?
Yeah, I do parasailing there. And I was in Cyprus in April.
That's where
have a good time.
That's where you is that where they get behind the boat?
I go San Antonio.
Oh, I know San Antonio.
We stayed a bit near Port des Torrents this time, but most of the people I met were either too old or they had their own partners. But they said I was a barrel of laughs and should be on Big Brother. And I was quite a comedian on the mic, on the shows they did at night. And I like fun, and I'd be really good to somebody, kind. I mean, I'm young in my ways and how I dress and things like that.
Do you know what I'm going to do?
To have a genuine gentleman.
I'm going to leave a note about you and your aspirations, Pauline, for Mike Mendoza. I'm sure this will just serve as a reminder for him. So if anyone should get in touch with the programme after hearing what you said tonight, then possibly we can see about putting the two of you together. Or maybe the 12 of you. Why not? It's on a big white screen. You're listening to talkSPORT. I'm Mike Cameron. Thank you very much, Pauline. If you'd like to be part of the programme and you'd like to express a view when it comes to having speed limiters fitted to your car. Yeah, so suddenly we're not in charge anymore. Yeah. Of course, naturally, it has to come. 08704 20 20 20. Be joined by a man who's got a lot to say about this whole issue in just a few minutes. His name is Paul Smith, founder of the Safe Speed Road Safety Campaign. We'll be opening the issue out, talking a little bit about speed cameras and maybe what you can do should you find yourself the victim of them. The number again, 08704 20 20 20. Stuart's in Stanmore. Can't get a bus out of town. Hello, Stuart.
Good morning, Michael John. I must say, Diddy seems to have a very deep voice today, doesn't she?
Who, Diddy?
Yeah.
No, be careful. Don't mention the other side.
Anyway, I must say, it's amazing how within this vast chrysalis of radio, you, Mr. Dickin, Mr. Mendoza, Jonesy, all seem to turn up here on this show.
Really? They're all here?
Yes, and Bill Bingham as well on the news desk.
Yes.
That's a good timing today for Bill to be on, isn't it? With you in here.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Will these people never go?
Well, I suppose you've joined the ever-growing band of refugees.
A little legion of the lost ourselves.
You could say we're all deserters.
Well, possibly, or second-thoughters. What about this terror suspects? I know you wanted to talk to me about that in particular.
Yes, because I think it's absolutely ridiculous that, according to yesterday's papers, that we are allowing before them to have their prayers and everything, and have their religious day, their Sabbath, before they were interrogated. Can you imagine? I wasn't actually around during the war, but what would have happened during the war? Would we have given if a current rules and regulations were in place? We'd have probably given Rudolf Hess his diesel money, whether it is, back for his flight, and Lord Haw would have been in Downing Street.
I've got to be candid with you, Stuart. You've not got me on my best subject. But is this Rudolf Hess who flew to the UK from Germany to put together some dubious peace plan? Is that right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right.
Well, probably now under today's. Instead of jailing him, he'd have probably become a hero and been given his fares and everything.
Oh, naturally.
So I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I think we should consider ourselves in a state of war. Instead of looking at calling them just terrorists, this is a war. And if somebody was born in the UK, has been said, why would they need to be provided with interpreters?
Well, you're touching onto an issue here, Stuart, as you well know, because you're about as silly as a fox, aren't you?
Definitely.
You're touching here on something which applies in America if you want to continue your existence in America or start an existence in America as a citizen, you have to be able to speak English, or at least be understood. Do you know, one of the things that concerns me about living in a country and not having a partial use of the language is if there is an emergency, say something's on fire, or there's something awful happening, you know, maybe a child has got knocked over in a traffic accident or something like that, you're not in a position to communicate with the mother or tell the people that the building's on fire, get out, get out. They wouldn't know what you were saying.
That's true. I have seen things like that on canvassing on occasions.
Yes. Well, you've been, as they say, on the knocker?
Yes.
Yes.
So I have actually seen things like that. With that part, I can see. But these are actually people born here as opposed to the immigrants. These people.
Yeah,
so,
well, do you know, that's an argument that a lot of people use, that which we're just talking of, you know, not being able to communicate because people decide to live within a group, a social and national group. And those who seek, you know, to spread integration use that argument often. But I sometimes wonder if people who've moved to this country do necessarily want to embrace the culture. They really rather enjoy their own, so they've got their own version of it. And that was no different when you look at the photographs of the British quarters in India. They look like Surrey-trimmed lawns, little bungalows, which incidentally is an Indian form of building, isn't it? Bungalow is an Indian word. So we've got all this going on, and we are just as guilty as everybody else of going somewhere and refusing to speak. What do the British say when they're confounded by another language? They just say the same thing, only louder.
Britain should be the international language.
Well, it's perfectly all right if we speak it, but it's not so shiny for somebody who doesn't, is it?
I believe it. Just wouldn't the world be much better if everybody spoke perfect English?
The last time we spoke, I seem to recall you telling me that you were running a comestibles establishment.
Yes, I work in a kebab, an Indian takeaway, yes. It's a very good memory for you.
I was talking to some friends of mine last night. We were talking about kebabs and the English and, well, probably the British fascination of having too many pints of liquid refreshment and a dodgy kebab. Not necessarily because one wanted it, but it was there in the morning as a reminder that it wasn't your drinking that was at fault, it was just another dodgy kebab.
If you choose to go to that type of establishment, you can have dodgy kebabs, you can have top quality kebabs, you can have dodgy radio presenters, you can have top quality radio presenters, you can have dodgy radio stations with no listeners, you can have good quality